If you were to read the works of people like Muslim bin Hajjaj al-Nisapuri, or the works of the likes of Ahmad bin Hanbal's Musnad, or al-Mustadrak ala al-Sahihayn, amongst other works, you'll find that the tradition is clearly narrated of the two weighty things. That the tradition begins by saying, Inni tarikun fikum al-Thaqalayn, Kitab Allah wa itrati ahl bayti. That the tradition normally begins with the Holy Prophet stating, I leave behind for you two weighty things. If you were to ask millions of Muslims in the world today, what is Hadith al-Thaqalayn? What is it that the Prophet left behind, the two weighty things? You will find the biggest hoax, the biggest scam, and the biggest lie in Islamic history has been performed on millions of Muslims in the world. Because if you were to ask many Muslims, what are the Thaqalayn? You will find many of them in the world saying that the Prophet said, I leave behind for you the Quran and my Sunnah. This particular narration, Quran and my Sunnah, is what unfortunately many Muslims in the world today have been deceived with. If you were to go to mosques in London, in Birmingham, Bradford, Blackburn, Burnley, if you were to go to Stockport or Sheffield across the UK, if you were to go to mosques in Pakistan or in India, if you were to go to mosques in Saudi Arabia, if you were to go to mosques in Europe or in Australasia, you'll find that there are hundreds of millions of Muslims who've been taught the wrong version of Hadith al-Thaqalayn. That there are hundreds of millions of Muslims who've been deceived either arrogantly or ignorantly by the imams of their mosques. Because when you come to ask many Muslims, what is it that Rasulullah said, I leave behind for you? Many of them will turn around and say, brother, it's Quran and Sunnah. If you go to the Khatib of Salat al-Jum'ah in many mosques, he'll always say to the people, hold on to the Quran, hold on to the Sunnah. Rasulullah said, hold on to the Quran, hold on to the Sunnah. This is a hoax and a scam that has been performed on many people. How? Because Bukhari doesn't narrate this hadith, Muslim doesn't narrate this hadith, Ibn Majah doesn't narrate the hadith, Abu Dawud doesn't narrate the hadith, Tirmidhi doesn't narrate the hadith, Nasa'i doesn't narrate the hadith. In other words, the most famous books of Ahlul Sunnah, the Sahih al-Sittah, not one of them has said that Rasulullah said, I leave behind for you the Quran and Sunnah. You find therefore that this hoax and this scam has led many to grow up, unfortunately, by saying, when you ask them what are the Thaqalayn, many will turn around and say Quran, Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah. Unfortunately, they've been lied to that this is meant to be a famous tradition narrated by the most famous scholars of Ahlul Sunnah. Whereas I defy anyone to show me this tradition in Bukhari, or in Muslim, or in Tirmidhi, or in Nasa'i. The tradition that's been narrated in the books of Ahlul Sunnah, and it's called the tradition of Hadith al-Thaqalayn or Hadith al-Thaqalayn. If it's called Hadith al-Thaqalayn, then the meaning is what? Thiql, in the idea of that which is heavy. That means Rasulullah saying, I leave behind for you that which is heavy, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, something which is heavy for you to carry. If it's Hadith al-Thaqalayn rather than Thiqlayn, that means Thaqal from that which is important. Therefore you find that this hadith in its origin, what is it? Rasulullah in its origin, in both Sunni and Shia sources, says, Inni tarikun fikum al-Thaqalayn. I am leaving behind for you two weighty things. Sometimes he says, Inni mukhallifun fikum al-Thaqalayn. Kitab Allah wa itrati ahl bayti. I leave behind for you the Quran and my progeny, the Ahlul Bayt. Ma in tamassaktum bihima lan tadhillu ba'di abada. While you hold on to these two, you will never go astray after me. وَإِنَّهُمَا لَن يَفْتَرِقَا حَتَّى يَرُدَّ عَلَيَّ الْحَوْضِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And that they will never separate from each other until you return to me on the pool of Kawthar on the day of judgment. The original Hadith al-Thaqalayn therefore is what? I leave behind for you the Quran and my Ahlul Bayt, not the Quran and my Sunnah. And would you believe I leave behind for you Quran and my Ahlul Bayt is narrated in the main books of Ahlul Sunnah through 39 different chains. 39 different chains narrate that Rasulullah said, I leave behind for you, O people, the Quran and my Ahlul Bayt, my Ahlul Bayt, my Ahlul Bayt. in our books 82 different chains, and therefore the hadith is classified as mutawatir. Meaning what? Meaning the same hadith has been narrated from so many different chains that the hadith becomes a hujjah to be used.